Part 44. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 432. Sugu and Richelieu went out and came back at night. They were surprised to see Washington back very early. Washington's ice blue long hair was not tied into a ponytail and fell to his shoulders. She was wearing a black hip-hugging skirt, and her slender and straight legs were crossed together. Holding a bottle of beer in his hand, he looked at Sugu and Richelieu, shaking his toes, and swaying with his half-taken sandals. She said, "You guys came back so late. In the past, during the day in Washington, I had to deal with matters at the law firm and had to run around. I couldn't get any rest when I returned to the apartment at night. I was always working on the coffee table in the living room or on the desk in my room." In Sugu's impression, she was holding a pen and holding a book and dealing with things all night long. She had been working for many days in a row. She was often busy until late at night, and Sugu could only stay by her side. Even talking would be considered an interruption. Her job, and no one here can help her. Sugu was a little better, but when he saw those jerky words with a strong professional nature, which were as big as two heads each, he was still looking for trouble. Although Sugu mentioned that you can take your time with your work and don't rush to finish everything in the next few days. I can't let so many people wait for me. This was the answer given by Washington, in a firm tone. The only free time Washington has these days is when South Dakota goes out to play during the day. When he comes back at night, he sees the busy Washington and stands beside him laughing. No matter how busy he is, Washington will immediately put down his pen and impose an iron fist of justice on South Dakota before he has some free time. Usually when South Dakota is bullied, Sugu still sympathizes with her. Now that South Dakota is being bullied, he doesn't have the slightest sympathy. Washington is obviously so busy, so it's too much to try to tease him. Sugu said, "When I came back, I waited for a long time for the bus. In the end, there was no tram. I walked for a long time to find a taxi before coming back, so it was so late." Washington held up the can of beer and said, "That's it, do you want beer?" Sugu waved his hand and said, "No, by the way, you came back so early today. Let's wait until the court convenes. The case has finally been cleared up. All that's left are some trivial matters." Sugu said, "How many lawsuits are left?" "One or two, it's already in the final stage. Anyway, the most troublesome lawsuit has been settled." "Are the most troublesome lawsuits the fastest?" Washington squinted her eyes, and there was a fierce light in her eyes. She said, "It depends on what method you use. It will be much faster to use an axe." Sugu thought of what happened in that bar and said, "You destroyed the whole bar and nothing happened." "Because I know the gendarmerie here. As long as they acknowledge the matter and communicate with the police, I don't need to write a report." Sugu said, "I remembered that Blucher and Admiral Hipper were in the gendarmerie before, although they are no longer in the military police force. With them here, many things in the garrison can be handled. The two of them, the mysterious self-confidence and the expelling killer." Washington finished the can of beer, crushed the can and threw it into the trash can, and said, "How about you two go out? Can you find any clues about growth? The story of the great change in Akagi has been told a long time ago. It just so happens that several people here, whether they are from South Dakota, Washington, or North Carolina, are full-level ship girls, and their training levels have reached the limit. Akagi is able to grow, which is exciting for several people. Both Sugu and Richelieu hope to get some good news when they go out." However, there was no good news at all. Sugu spread his hands and said, "Not ideal. If it doesn't work, then it won't work." Washington was completely too busy and it was rare to relax. She didn't pay too much attention to such things. She didn't have any worries anyway. "My sister North Carolina is by my side, and the South Dakota is here, so I can bully her at will. I don't have many pursuits in life, and I also have a career, although my career ended just like this. However, the town government lacked people like him, people who were proficient in the law. If you encounter something embarrassing, you must take action on your own at that time. Washington knows this very well. Sugu said, "We went to the pier to have a look, looked at the shipyard from a distance, and then walked along the Golden Beach, but found nothing. Many cities in the old world must have been swallowed by the sea, and the New York Navy Yard must have sunk. It turned into ruins in the sea. I wanted to dive down to have a look, but Richelieu thought it was too dangerous, so I didn't go. In the water, the abilities of ordinary ship girls cannot be used at all. Even if they can exert unparalleled power, their movement and bombardment will be restricted. Only on the sea can they exert their powerful power. The water is the world of submarines, and they are the overlords in the water. However, they are also greatly threatened by destroyers, light cruisers, and light mothers. In short, there is a cycle of scissors, rock, and paper between ship girls." Sugu said, "It's a pity that we didn't bring the small submarine out of the governor's mansion. It would have been better to dive like that." Speaking of submarines, I found 3 small German submarines from my family. They were sleeping in a dormitory. U-47 is energetic, but loves to play pranks too much. U-505 has a slightly ordinary personality, an ordinary young girl. Sugu likes U-81 the most because the shy little girl is the cutest. Sugu remembered that in addition to German submarines, he also had American submarines. For example, there is the big mackerel who is a loving cook, and the archer fish whose breasts and buttocks are enough to defeat many adult ship girls. I don't know what kind of cute little girls they are supposed to be. A young girl like this should follow some adult, but I wonder where the cute submarine ended up." Sugu said, "Washington, do you know where the big mackerel and archerfish are?" Washington hesitated and said, "I don't know where they are, maybe they are with Colorado and the others. Maybe with Dei Feng. Colorado, the 3 Colorado sisters should be about the same. Dei Feng, I can't figure it out. They have a very good relationship. They have known each other for years. It's okay for Japanese ship girls and American ship girls to be together. After all, we are all sisters in the garrison. Although Lexington and Akage like to compete, everyone actually doesn't like Japanese ship girls very much. Don't mind Akage, young girls like the big mackerel and archer fish are too late for everyone to like." There was no news about the cute little girl, which was disappointing. Sugukian was angry. He said, "Lexington is so irresponsible. She just took her sister and left without caring about the submarine. Lexington is considered a senior, not a eldest sister. She is good as a secretary, but she has no leadership skills. Lexington has no leadership skills, but is perfect as a secretaryship. America's eldest sister should be regarded as the Enterprise, but there was no Enterprise in the garrison." Sugu thought of York City. Sugu said, "Have I told you? I built the city of York. York City just has better damage control. You are careless and always vulnerable to minor injuries. Minor injuries will not leave you in the line of fire." Washington took out his sunglasses from under the coffee table, put them on, knocked on the table, and said, "You think this looks like a big sister?" There's no denying that Washington looked like the rowdy girl against South Dakota. When not bickering with South Dakota, Washington is still a very attractive girl. The coffee table, which was always piled with various materials, books, and documents in the past few days, was clean. Sugu picked up the lychees from the fruit bowl and peeled them off one by one. Lowly, North Carolina said, "Admiral, feed me." Sugu put his hand into the little Lowly's mouth and peeled off another one. South Dakota pulled Sugu's clothes and opened his mouth. Sugu said, "Do it yourself." South Dakota was angry, and Sugu said, "You have almost handled the matter now. When it is all finished, we can go back directly. Do you think it is better to take the train or the cruise ship? The train is faster, but that way we have to go back to St. Slovenia change to a cruise ship. There are only a few cruise ships a month, so you may have to wait. If you take a cruise ship here directly, you have to make a big circle, which takes more time. Washington said, go home. Going home, I think, well, I suddenly remembered. Washington leaned on the sofa, raised his head to look at the ceiling, rubbed his forehead with his palms, and sighed, take the train. I have been so busy these days that I almost forgot some things. You came here specifically to see us. In fact, apart from us, there is still someone here. I haven't contacted him for a long time. I don't know how he is doing now. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 433. Washington stroked his forehead and leaned on the sofa, feeling regretful for his mistake. Fortunately, I thought about it. If because of my mistake, I didn't think about it until everyone returned to the town hall, then I would be in big trouble. Although he can come back alone, no matter how he makes up for it afterwards, it will definitely be a stain that will never be washed away in his life. I met them before when I was on a business trip, but I haven't seen them again for a long time. I wonder if they are still there. Sugu said, I hope they are here. Who are they? Washington opened her mouth, thought of something, and then stopped. She said, how about you guess who it is, Admiral? Sugu said, there are so many people who have not been found in the governor's mansion. How can we guess it? Then Huda and Sheng Sheng. I heard that they established a company. It seems to be a big company. Since it is a big company, there must be a lot of debts, and as a lawyer, you might come into contact with financial disputes. No, although Hood is unreliable, but his reputation is there is no need for me. Everyone has confidence in the reputation of the god of war and the reputation of the maid chief. Are you interested in the underworld? You happen to be in the underworld, you should have connections. Washington reached out and knocked on the table and said, hey, I'm a lawyer, not a gangster. Sugu smiled and said, you look like a gangster. How can I guess in such a large area? Narrow it down a bit. American ship girls, there aren't many of them. Since she was an American ship girl, Sugu first thought of the Grand Canyon, Colorado, which was the first battleship she built. He likes big ships and big guns, and he likes short hair and big breasts. Due to the game mechanics, high-level ship girls cannot be built at low levels. When I was a newbie, I looked through the construction log and immediately fell in love with Colorado, and then I just happened to build Colorado. Colorado arrived at the garrison earlier than Lexington and Lord Sukh-Bader, the Mongolian god of war. After Colorado's transformation, the justice on his chest became more and more shocking, and he was Helena's equal opponent. In the eyes of many people, Helena is even more favored. She has short hair, big breasts, and her cuteness. Although she is obviously not as powerful as Rodney and Nelson, I have always liked her. Sugu said without hesitation, Colorado. Washington also shook his head without hesitation and said, no. Since it wasn't Colorado, Sugu thought of the ship's wife who was sitting firmly in the top spot in the heavy cruiser. Even Prince Eugene couldn't make any waves in front of her. She was also full of justice. Sugu said, so is it Wichita? Washington shook his head. Lexington is a wife and quite famous. She can become the wife and the well-deserved main palace, mainly because she appears at the beginning of every new player, accompanying the player all the way from the newbie to the old saltfish. Apart from his wife, who is the most famous? It's actually hard to say who it is, Saratoga or Bismarck. In the eyes of many people, it must be a certain big ship and cannon. But there is someone more famous than big ships and cannons, and she immediately comes to mind. Sugu's expression changed, and he couldn't make that expression no matter what. He said, "Is it Quincy Ovo?" Washington sighed, and she said, "I remember telling you before, I wonder where they are." Idiot Ovo Sugu still likes him very much, it's a pity if it's not her. Washington said, "So many people, you have perfectly avoided the correct answer. I don't know whether I should despise you or admire you." Sugu couldn't guess, so he said, "You'd better tell me the answer directly." When Washington was about to speak, South Dakota said, "Admiral, don't ask that old witch. Ask me instead." Sugu just remembered that besides Washington, South Dakota was also here. Despite this, to be honest, Sugu is still more willing to believe in Washington, and South Dakota is always unreliable. He said, "Washington, if you don't want to say it, then I'll ask South Dakota. I'll give you a chance to perform in front of me, the Admiral. Don't know how to cherish it?" Washington was non-committal and said, "Just ask her." South Dakota said, "Feed me lychees." Sugu peeled one for South Dakota. South Dakota didn't say anything and fed several in a row. Sugu asked again, "Who is it?" Sugu stopped feeding her, and South Dakota peeled and ate the lychees by herself. Then she said, "If you ask me, I don't know either." The corner of his mouth twitched, and Sugu said, "Since you don't know, why do you want me to ask you?" South Dakota didn't look at Sugu's face, she said, "I never said I knew." Guam listened, and she burst into laughter. Washington said, "You know why I am so angry usually. You think South Dakota is cute because you don't understand her. When you understand her, you will definitely want to fight her, kill her." South Dakota looked indifferent and let the important person pinch her face and ravage her. Helpless, Sugu looked at Washington begging, and Washington said, "You ask South Dakota, then don't ask me." "No, Washington. After such a long time, a lot of things in the game have been forgotten. If you mention a lot of things, you will suddenly realize it, and then you will remember everything. If you can't think of something right away, you'll sometimes end up in a dead end." Lightning flashed in his mind, and Sugu wanted to hit himself on the head. Sugu said, "They must be dumplings, they have thin skin and big fillings." Afraid of the exposed dumplings, she almost forgot about them. Essex, the most conservative ship girl in the entire game. Washington sneered, and she stopped answering and said, "I don't know. It's not Colorado. It can't be Maryland and West Virginia. The three sisters should be together. Otherwise, it's Brooklyn, Killeen, Mahan, and Houston. Houston, she's Northampton's sister. None of these. If so, then it's Borg or Nevada. Baltimore. Langley. Chaser. Tennessee. Alaska." Washington didn't speak, and Guam said, "Brooklyn is now called the O'Higgins. We don't have Borg and Langley in the garrison. The pursuers are British ships. Sister Alaska has returned to the garrison. Doesn't she have no sense of existence?" Sugu thought of Borg and Langley, the two ship girls who appeared easily, but it seemed that they really didn't keep them and forgot about them. Washington said, "You have almost finished telling me who it is. Let's talk about it when we pass by." "No, Washington, peanuts." Washington left the sofa and took another can of beer from the refrigerator. She said, "I will punish you. Don't look for South Dakota in front of me, I suddenly want to drink beer again." "Admiral, do you want it?" "No, Peanut, tell me. I found a problem. I asked you to guess who it is. Do you always guess who you like?" Washington looked around and said, "Richelieu. Guam. Akagi. Do you want it?" Akagi raised his hand and said, "Give me a can." Akagi can always drink wine as if it were tea. South Dakota spread his hands and said, "What about me? You didn't ask me if I wanted it." Sugu suffered for many days. He thought about everyone. It seemed that everyone was possible, which made it uncomfortable. Washington remains reluctant to say. Washington spent a lot of time finishing the remaining matters, and the trivial matters were actually the most troublesome. It doesn't matter if you rent a garage in South Dakota, but if you rent an apartment here in Washington, the loss will be huge. You don't have to buy the apartment, you can just rent it out. It's just that many of the furniture in the apartment were purchased separately, so it would be a pity to discard them so casually. In the end, Washington used her eloquence as a lawyer, and at least most of the rent and deposit were returned. Since he decided to take the train, Washington also sold his car that was still in the repair shop. The second-hand discount was very high. Everything was packed up and everyone left with their belongings. Cruise tickets are harder to buy, but train tickets are much easier. After 2 days of taking the train, everyone arrived in a new city, which was also a prosperous big city. Is this here? Now you can tell who it is. We'll get there later. You can identify them yourself. If they are no longer here, will I tell you who they are? Sugu thought to himself, unless she is a little girl, I would not recognize her at all. After all, there is still a big difference between Keelan and Mahan. I took a taxi instead of going to the busy streets and got off at the edge of the city close to the suburbs. There are several abandoned warehouses here, and there are many people near the warehouses. The road here is surrounded by fences, and motorcycles are parked on it. Sugu looked at the advertisement posted on the wall of the warehouse. It seemed that several motorcycle clubs were holding competitions. Here. Yes, here. They are now motorcycle riders, ace knights, and earn a lot of money for the club every year. The motorcycle competition here attracts a lot of people every year. I came to watch the competition before and met them. It happened to be there is a game, so we don't have to look for it everywhere. This is not a formal game, but a game between several clubs. Compared with official games, such games are actually popular in small circles because they can be more violent. The group of people stood outside the crowd. No one wanted to follow those people to squeeze in and out, as they could easily be taken advantage of. Sugu had no way to go up and recognize each other immediately because the game was about to start. Sugu said, "Did you see it? Where is it?" Counting from the left, third person. Sugu looked over and saw that she was a sexy woman with blonde hair, holding a rather domineering-looking motorcycle, and holding a black helmet in her other hand. Her chest was high and she was wearing a white shirt with the hem tied in a knot, exposing her belly. She also wore slim-fitting jeans with many holes in them. Sugu also knew that this was a trend. Below, she wore black boots. Not just anyone can pull off these outfits, but when she wears them, she has an unusually wild charm. However, the gap between the game and reality was so big that Sugu couldn't remember who it was for a while. There was another person beside her, whose back could only be seen, with short golden hair that was dazzling in the sun. Then the man seemed to be talking, tilting his head, revealing a side face with a high bridge of nose. Before Sugu could speak, South Dakota said from the side, "Oh, she is so handsome." "So handsome? A man?" "Judging from the profile, he is a really handsome man. Ship girls can always meet many suitors, such as Lexington and Saratoga. It's okay if you're around, but if you're not around, it's always easy to meet a lot of people who strike up a conversation." No matter how handsome the man was, Sugu didn't have any worries. After all, you are the admiral, and it is impossible for the ship girl to follow others behind your back. He was actually so much more handsome than himself. Sugu thought about the other person's appearance when he was rejected, and thought about the other person's expression when he appeared. He didn't know why, but felt a little happy in his heart. Okay, I'm a little malicious. It's better to rely on luck. There's nothing to be confident or proud of. However, unexpectedly, Sugu saw the man reaching out and hugging his wife's head, as if to cheer her up. His shipgirl seemed to have her head nestled on the other's chest, and finally the man kissed his shipgirl's forehead. As Washington watched, she said, "Their relationship is still so good." Sugu didn't pay attention to Washington's words, he lowered his head. "My own shipgirl kissed others on the forehead, why would she kiss others on the forehead?" As a shipgirl, she generally avoids any close contact with men other than admirals. For example, there is no way to avoid shaking hands, but you will never do the very intimate gesture of kissing the forehead. Kissing the forehead is considered very intimate. Could it be that his shipgirl left him and found a new boyfriend or an admiral? To be honest, it is understandable that the shipgirl leaves him after he has been away for such a long time. He is just an admiral and has no power to control the other party. Besides, he has left and his life and death are unknown. How can he still ask the shipgirl to keep the integrity for him? Although I feel uncomfortable, this kind of thing is considered normal. There are shipgirls like Lexington who have a full affection, and there are also many shipgirls who don't pay attention at all. Since there has never been a shipwreck, they should all have a favorable opinion of 50. Is 50 favorable opinion considered high or low? I was thinking a lot in my mind for a moment, but calmed down after a while. After experiencing so many things, Sugu is still very confident in his shipgirl. I thought to myself, wait and ask, maybe I have seen the wrong person. Anyway, he looked into the distance and the smile disappeared from his face. Washington noticed the ugly expression on Sugu's face and said, "You know who they are now." "I didn't expect that they are still here. They must have really joined the club. Let's go find them after the game is over." Sugu noticed something was wrong, but couldn't remember it for a moment. He pursed his lips and said, "Who is she?" The blonde can't remember it at the moment. "And is the person next to her her friend?" "That man is so handsome." Washington gave Sugu a look like a fool, and said, "Man, you said you couldn't remember everyone's faces, and now I finally believe it. Godlike man, you are looking for death, that's California and Tennessee. I will help you remember the sentence. I will tell them this sentence later and see what Tennessee thinks of you." Sugu tilted his head. "Tennessee, a female man named Tennessee." He looked at the back figure from a distance, originally having the first impression because of South Dakota's words, he thought it was a man. Now listen to what Washington said. "Although the back is quite tall, the shoulders are not broad enough. Although it is short hair, the bangs of short hair are very long, and usually only women wear them. The profile of the face is indeed handsome, and the lines seem to be quite soft. In fact, they are so far apart that they can't be seen clearly at all. What a big mistake." Sugu looked at Washington with a smile on his face and said, "Don't say what I said until you wait." Washington looked at the game that had started and the motorcycles speeding away. She said, "Give me a reason not to say anything. You can ask me whatever you want, as long as I can do it." "All right." Washington showed a dangerous smile, and Sugu said, "Why do I feel that you haven't told me who you are, so you are setting up a trap? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 434. As the whistle sounded to start the game, California, wearing a helmet and goggles, took the lead. The long blonde hair was dancing in the wind due to the high-speed speed of the motorcycle. It was obvious that he had turned the accelerator to the maximum power at the beginning. In such a competition, California, as a ship girl, has great advantages and does not need to worry about safety issues. Of course, no one who dares to participate in this kind of modified motorcycle competition takes their lives too seriously. They accelerated without any hesitation and soon disappeared from everyone's sight. Treating such a road as a racetrack seems to be a sign of abandonment to Sugu. However, precisely because it is dangerous and can stimulate people's hearts, the game is welcomed by many people. Besides, in every world there are people who are brave enough to take on challenges and risk their own lives, such as flying to death, or being unprepared to be friends. There are no obstacles of any kind, but the road itself is in poor condition. Although it is all plains, the road still has many potholes, ups and downs, as well as large slopes and sharp turns. However, since it is a competition, viewing is equally important. We will not drive along the highway to other cities. We will just form a circular track along the highway and a small number of streets in the sparsely populated suburbs. There is obviously no live broadcast here, and to watch the game, viewers must go to higher ground. There are warehouses and abandoned old buildings around, and most of the track can be seen from these rooftops. When the race started, the people who were at the starting point of the track gradually dispersed, and they ran to the top floors of abandoned warehouses and old buildings. Among these spectators, some even brought telescopes to look professional. Sugu and the others did not join in the fun. After all, they were not here to watch the motorcycle race. Likewise, no one bets heavily on any team in the hope of winning a large amount of money, regardless of winning or losing. No one in the team likes to seek excitement, but North Carolina looks at the distance with some longing. She just likes those dark motorcycles. The crowd dispersed. This was not a very formal arena. After the night left, the only people left on the track were the assistants. They didn't have a special resting place, they just dispersed at will. Let's go get Tennessee now. She seems to be leaving, please stop her. No need to shout, I see this way. Everyone was standing nearby, except Sugu, who was a beautiful woman with her own characteristics and always attracted people's attention. However, even if someone comes to strike up a conversation with the reason explained, they will only get a gentle smile hiding indifference, or ignore them, and in the end they will probably leave in anger. There may be gangsters or gangsters among these people, but in broad daylight, no one would be fooled. South Dakota said, Tennessee has always been the most handsome guy in the garrison. Tennessee, Brother Tien, it's okay, please continue speaking in front of Tennessee. There were many people on the side of the track at the beginning. Intentionally or unintentionally, Sugu and a few people could see Tennessee, but Tennessee couldn't notice it. Now because the onlookers are gradually leaving, as his sister California's assistant, Tennessee is fine now. Then she noticed something strange around her. With a little attention, she could find that it was someone she knew. Those people look familiar, and they are still waving. Tennessee walked around and first saw the most familiar Washington. He had long white hair tied up with ice blue. He was dressed neatly in a white shirt, cropped trousers, and high heels. She also held a hand with North Carolina, who was wearing suspenders. Washington, why are you here? And this is... Sugu could see Tennessee's appearance clearly at this time. After all, he could only see Tennessee's back at the beginning. The front view of Tennessee shows a delicate face. But compared to the equally handsome Richelieu, she lacks many soft lines that are in line with women. Paired with a neat black trousers and short blonde hair, her appearance looks neutral. It used to be that I had the first impression, but now it's almost the same. If I hadn't seen Tennessee's high chest or lack of Adam's apple, it would be difficult to tell her gender. It's okay to say that it's a handsome beauty, but it's barely acceptable to say that it's a soft-looking man. She has a good face shape and good skin. If she could grow her hair long or wear women's clothes, she would still be a beauty. Sugu didn't like to play the deep role, so he said, Tennessee. Washington looked at Sugu, and when she remembered what she had just said, she showed a half-smiling expression. Tennessee also saw Sugu, showed a puzzled expression, and said with some hesitation in his voice, Admiral. Yes. Well, Guam, Richelieu, North Carolina, and Sugu put his hand next to the black beauty wearing a wide-brimmed hat and an orange long skirt, and said, "She is Akage." Tennessee looked up and down at the much younger Akage, trying hard to connect the current Akage with the Akage in his memory wearing a Miko costume and a bra wrap. Somewhat helpless, I realized that the gap between them was too big, so I finally said hello and said, "Hello, Akage." "Oh, and little fat South Dakota, I can't even see you if you stand behind me." South Dakota said angrily, "Don't call me fat, and I'm not short." After a brief meeting, everyone left from the side of the track. Sugu sat on the steps outside the abandoned warehouse and briefly talked about his situation. Little lowly North Carolina stared at the grasshoppers on the grass next to the abandoned warehouse. Guam, Richelieu, and Akage were talking, and Washington and South Dakota occasionally interrupted. Tennessee started to stand next to Sugu, feeling a little strange when he saw Sugu. It had been a long time, even when I was in the garrison before, I had never seen my admiral up close like this. After all, except when I first came to the garrison, I had no chance to become a secretary ship, had no sorties, and had no chance to see the admiral. She has a grand personality and doesn't recognize others. She imitates Sugu, who is also not too particular and sits on the steps. Sugu saw Tennessee sitting next to him, saw her reaching out to brush her bangs, noticed her long and slender fingers, and listened to her tell the story after leaving the governor's mansion. After listening to the story, the two sisters looked much more relaxed, unlike Washington, who was busy as a lawyer every day. Although joining a motorcycle club is actually quite casual, there is no contract or contract. Such a club is more like a ticket club where people with the same interests gather together. No extra work is required, money can be earned through various tournaments. How could a tournament like this be without stakes? I just got a lot of money, but most of it was used for modification. It was said that how much money was spent on modifying the engine of that motorcycle. Sugu didn't understand this anyway, so he just listened casually. Listening to this, Sugu thought that his own townhouse definitely didn't have a place for the two of them to play motorcycles. They can play on the mountain road behind the Toot Larry mansion. There are almost no people on that road anyway, it's just a little dangerous. Since she is a ship girl, there should be no problem. It's a little dangerous, as long as she doesn't play on that cliff road. Talking like this casually, South Dakota occasionally makes jokes. A man with a bald head walked by the track. He saw Tennessee, said hello, and said, "Don't you go to your wife's game?" Tennessee said, "No. These are your friends, so beautiful. Go away, don't distract them." The bald man left, and Tennessee said, "He's not bad, he speaks freely." South Dakota said, "Your wife, why are you here?" "What's wrong, California, my sister, my wife, can't do it?" "You guys really know how to play," Washington said. Tennessee held her knees with her hands, tilted her head, her short blonde hair spread out, and smiled a little shyly. When Sugu saw this scene, he thought to himself, "Tennessee, you are so feminine, your smile should be rougher." Tennessee said, "It's quite chaotic here. People who play with these modified motorcycles are anyway, here, if you are too private and unsocial, you will often be ostracized. It's troublesome to pursue and strike up conversations. Anyway, they don't know us, so I am my sister's. She has a boyfriend. Lily, do you know Lily? The admiral must know. Lily, the most pure love in the world that is not allowed to be blasphemed, the most pure love that is not allowed to be penetrated by anyone in the world." Washington smiled and said, "You are poaching the admiral. The admiral doesn't like California anyway." Sugu thought about the California he had seen. Although he was not interested in the game, the California here was sexy and handsome. However, he was very sensible and did not interrupt the issue. He said, Why do you want to do this? What else would you do? Sugu tapped his fingers on the ground and said, for example, how about you open a hotel? After all, Hotel California, the proprietress of Hotel California, seems to be pretty much the same. Why open a hotel? We don't know how to do it, and we don't have the startup capital. Sugu said, so how do you feel about playing basketball? He recalled the harmonious portraits of the two in the game, especially the one in California that looked like they were playing basketball. I don't like basketball. What do you think about underground boxing matches? There is no problem with motorcycle riders testing their skills. Underground boxing matches are purely a test of strength. A boxing match between a ship girl and ordinary people is cheating. Even if the ship girl does not exert her unparalleled strength that is enough to break steel, in terms of resistance to strikes, if she is just a human being, even the most powerful human being cannot break through the defense with her fists. Before Sugu could speak, Tennessee clapped his legs and got up from the steps and said, "We've been talking for so long. Since the Admiral is here, let's go watch the game in California." Soon after, they climbed to the roof of the old building. In fact, Sugu was not interested, but it was difficult to refuse. The one at the front is California. There's a sharp turn there. You can only turn left, turn right into the city. Come back soon, California number 1. Let's go down. Coming down from the old building to the trackside, California had come back and she didn't see Tennessee at the finish. Then I saw this side and drove over on a motorcycle. Sugu saw California, who had taken off her helmet, up close. Her current appearance reminded Sugu of a picture he had seen before. Generally speaking, there are very few fan pictures of ship girls like California, but there happened to be one of them, which happened to be California riding a motorcycle. Although there are some differences, the difference is not huge. Sugu looked at California and how it brought people closer to each other, and of course he praised it. California leaned on the motorcycle and listened to Sugu say a lot. She suddenly said, "Admiral, you like motorcycles?" Sugu actually doesn't have much interest in motorcycles. He just praised it, so it's hard to say he doesn't like it. He responded, "Yeah." "Then get in the car," California said. The tilt of his head clearly meant that he wanted Sugu to sit on the back of the motorcycle. Sugu hesitated for a moment. He was still a little afraid of such a dangerous motorcycle, thinking that his ship girl would never harm him, so he finally climbed onto the motorcycle. "Hold tight then, I'll speed up." The motorcycle was racing at lightning speed, and Sugu was left with only two feelings. The speed is so fast, it seems like flying. California has ABS. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 435. Sugu now felt like the world was spinning. Although he wouldn't vomit, his steps were sluggish and his whole body felt like he was floating. "I just rode a motorcycle in California. Probably because I was on the car, I didn't go towards the track and drove towards the flat road. She didn't do any dangerous moves, but just the speed was still a bit uncomfortable." When Sugu drove a moped at home, he usually only dared to drive 40 or 50 yards and that was about it. If you go faster, it feels like the whole car is floating. Sitting on the back seat of the motorcycle, things were okay at first, but then suddenly accelerated, and at that moment, I immediately hugged California's waist tightly. Although the feeling of speeding is very good, if the speed is too fast, I am afraid of hitting something, and then the car will be crashed and people will be killed. Living is DPS. A tap on the shoulder or a shout was enough to get California to slow down. When he came back, he seemed to be laughed at by passers-by, and Sugu didn't care. Rather than trying to be a hero, he still felt that staying alive was more important, and there was no need to act cool about such things. California's words confirmed his thoughts. "Admiral, don't play at that speed. You have no experience. People die in accidents here every month. Sugu thought to himself, at that speed and on such a shabby road, it would be strange if he didn't die. Sugu got off the car and returned to the starting point of the track. After all, she won first place in the competition and received a large bonus. California left for a while and came back with lots of money. In such competitions, the prize money is always distributed on the spot, and it is simple and crude. South Dakota had never seen so much money, and she asked California to borrow it and look at it. There is no air conditioning outside, and Guam no longer wears the lace-trimmed, Lolita-style skirt. She just wears a simple short skirt. In the past, she was a ship girl who was not taken seriously. She belonged to the same family as battleships and battle cruisers. She had a good relationship with Tennessee and California. She suddenly asked, "Are you cheating on the race? We don't win every time. In such games, no one comes to us for match fixing." The group then followed Tennessee and California back to the rental house. The rental house was not far away, so they walked. On the way, Tennessee patted Sugu on the shoulder without any scruples, making him feel like a brother. "Admiral, what's wrong with you? You feel uncomfortable." Sugu waved his hand. He had basically recovered after such a long time, and said, "It's okay." South Dakota said, "It feels like you are a little exhausted, so let me help you." Washington stretched out his hand and grabbed South Dakota's collar and said, "Don't be troublesome." Tennessee said without hesitation, "Admiral, you are too weak. It should be more than 100 yards. It's okay." "Have you ever played racing, Admiral?" "No, I won't play." Sugu thought to himself, "I'm not a ship girl, I don't have that kind of steel and iron bones, so let's forget about this kind of thing. Besides, people who like to seek death will never be able to enter the academy or become an admiral." Tennessee regretted and said, "That one is more exciting, but unfortunately the chassis of the car is too low and a venue is required. This way is not possible." Walking beside him, California put lowly North Carolina on the motorcycle. She pushed the motorcycle and followed the team slowly forward. At this time, he turned his head and saw that Sugu still looked listless, with a smile on his lips. Sugu was not interested in this. Tennessee looked at Guam and said, "Would you like to play Guam? It's very exciting." Guam was actually a little afraid of that speed, but she didn't want to be underestimated. She said, "If you don't play, well, it's actually more exciting than going out to fight. By the way, have you ever gone out to fight now?" Although she had never attacked before, she had attacked several times when she was a guard on the cruise ship. Artillery fire, the screams of carrier-based aircraft, and charges are obviously more exciting and dangerous things. Tennessee said distressedly, "This side is not close to the sea, this is inland. This is an inland city, so there is no room for kanji to show off. Even in such a big city, there is only an office set up by the Kanyang headquarters. Just one person can handle all kinds of things, even the work of the gendarmerie can be taken care of by one person. After all, Gone girls basically live in cities near the sea. In most inland cities, many people don't even know Gone girls. The ship girl has a kind personality and will not easily conflict with others. Accidents are rare." Guam said ostentatiously, "Let me tell you, I have attacked many times now. By the way, do you know what equipment I have on me now? It is of course very important to show off one's wealth in front of one's friends, just like walking in brocade clothes at night. Guam's current equipment, Mk6, is equipped with Type 91 armor-piercing projectiles, all of which are equipment replaced from Baizai. Although the cannon has not been fired for such a long time, just having it equipped on the ship makes people feel happy." "What equipment? Let me take a look." "It's not convenient here, let's wait until we get back." Now on the street, Guam is unwilling to open the ship's equipment, otherwise it will easily attract onlookers. That strange look staring at him makes him feel uncomfortable all over. It's better to do more than to do less. The place where they live in Tennessee is a small factory building, which can be entered by pulling up the rolling shutter door. There was also a disassembled motorcycle inside, as well as many motorcycle accessories. Car lights and rear-view mirrors were placed in the corner, greasy aprons hung on the wall, and gloves that had turned black were scattered on the ground. It looked like a small repair shop. Tennessee said, "It's pretty messy, don't mind it?" "Fine." After entering the factory and entering the living room inside the factory, Guam unfolded his ship equipment like a show-off. "Look. Who gave it to you?" Tennessee knew that it was definitely not Guam's own equipment, and Guam's treatment was no better than its own. "Bizai." "Will Bizai give it to you? Whoever dares to disobey the Admiral's orders will take it away. He has always been like this." Sugu listened and said, "Don't use the word always, I just took the equipment of Kirov and Hornet. Now I have returned the bomber B-25 to Hornet. The ownership of the bomber B-25 is in on the Bumblebee." As Sugu said this, California, who was standing next to him with his arms folded, paused, then reached out and took a pack of women's cigarettes from a desk drawer. Tennessee said, "No, California now only has standard air-to-air radar and no main guns." "Like this? Let me think about it." Sugu was thinking. California was standing at the door. She didn't say anything. She reached out and held a slender women's cigarette and lit it. "I remember that when I first arrived at the governor's mansion was very poor at that time. Even the battleship Lion and Colorado were not equipped with the same equipment. At that time, his equipment was dismantled and given to them, and then never returned. Although the equipment is not very powerful, it is not comparable to the status of the bomber B-25 and Kirov cannon, and it is also its own equipment. Some ship girls are remembered for their powerful combat capabilities, and some are remembered for the equipment they carry. So for a ship girl like herself, her equipment is not very powerful, and she herself is not very powerful either. Even if the equipment is removed, the whole person is soon forgotten. Like Kirov and Bumblebee, if they see the equipment, they will probably think about it, making people think that they have done something very bad. Even if a ship girl like herself is done something very bad, the bad things will not be remembered by others. That piece of equipment has now become a resource. Washington saw something was wrong in California, and she asked, "What's going on?" "Nothing." No one remembered, so forget it. California didn't mind. She asked, "Washington, do you want one?" Washington waved his hand and said, "No, I don't smoke, do you like smoking?" California opened the cigarette box and found a neat row of cigarettes inside, except for a few missing ones. "This pack was given to me by someone before. It's been a few months and most of it is still left. How is the taste?" "It's a bit choking. I can't get any flavor out of it. I just want to smoke it." California smoked half a cigarette, then put out the cigarette and threw it away. "I remembered that in the past, someone gave me a spike cigarette. I didn't care and just smoked it. After waiting for a while, they wanted to do something to me, and I helped them all become eunuch. The ship girl is not controlled by hormones at all, so how can drugs control the ship girl? Even the most powerful drugs cannot do it. The only thing that can easily hurt the ship girl is the human heart." On the other side, even if Tennessee said so, Sugu couldn't remember what happened to California's equipment. "Let me think about it." "Well, first think about the development trajectory of the garrison. Firefly was the initial ship, then I remember it was Colorado, then Lexington, and the Mongol god of war Lord Sukh-Bader, and then I remember it was Lion. Come on. It should be quite difficult to guard the mansion at that time. Behind the Lion is reputation, then Bizai or Hood." California was listening, and he should have returned to the garrison in front of his reputation. She chuckled, she really wasn't taken seriously. However, no matter what, he is his admiral after all. Really unable to figure it out, Sugu looked at California apologetically and said, "California, I'll give you back your magical disguise from now on." California said, "Whose equipment are you going to dismantle? That's a big lie. Where in this world can it be so easy to get equipment?" Sugu laughed. California looked at Sugu, pursed his lips, and said, "I'm not interested in going out. Being a motorcyclist is great. If you feel guilty, Admiral, how about going for a ride with me in the future?" Sugu never wanted to do that kind of thing again, but he had another solution, and his ship girl would definitely not refuse. Sugu said, "From now on, I'll take you for a ride on my motorcycle. It doesn't matter where you want to go." California leaned against the wall. She crossed her arms and crossed her legs. Then she slowly leaned her head against the wall. She said, "Then I'll remember it." "Admiral, don't forget it again, California." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 436. After staying for a few days, Sugu left with Tennessee and California. Compared with the jobs in Washington, they are considered freelancers. A club that is purely based on interest and has no contract. You can leave at any time without having to answer to anyone. They have nothing but the motorcycles they have worked so hard to modify. Sugu suggested that it be consigned. The two shook their heads and finally decided to sell it to a familiar rider. The transaction was simple and rough, the money and goods were cleared, the transaction price was staggering, and there are no poor people who can play modification. The motorcycle was gone. As the admiral, Sugu said that he would help buy a new motorcycle when he returned to the garrison. Although the governor's mansion is not very rich, at least it still has enough money. Making the ship girl happy is what Sugu strives for. However, California said he no longer wanted to ride motorcycles and would like to try jet skis, skateboards, or sailing. Tennessee whatever. Everyone headed to another city, which was not the final destination, the port city of St. Sloven. They didn't go there just for fun, mainly because there were people there. They are also a pair of sisters, but unfortunately they are not the big mackerel and the archerfish. It seems that the big mackerel and the archerfish are not sisters. This time Washington did not hide it at all. They were the USS Nevada and the USS Oklahoma, both battleships. The sisters could be transformed in the game, but due to the relationship between the standing paintings, Sugu remembered that he had no interest at all in the beginning. Although he is not a newbie in Europe, he still got a strong ship girl in the early stage. He is also a stand-up artist, so these two ship girls have no use at all. I remember that they were also dark-skinned and wore revealing clothes, giving the impression of being chained and bound. Even so, it's not as cute as South Dakota. This may be due to the old relationship between standing and painting. After all, Nevada's Christmas costumes are pretty good. I remember when the loot shop opened in the game, I immediately changed into Prince Eugene's Christmas costumes. Their combat effectiveness is not very strong, because the battleships were not dismantled during the new period. Although they were kept, they were not in the mood to care about them at all. If he hadn't studied in the academy and learned about each ship girl's ship uniform, Sugu would probably not even know what their ship uniforms looked like by now. All in all, Sugu's impression of the two of them was still that of Western cowboys. North Carolina stretched half of his body out of the car, but Guam quickly pulled him back. Such an action was too dangerous. Washington made a fist without hesitation and hit North Carolina on the head. The little lowly burst into tears and held her head. Washington has always disliked Lexington's gentle education and found it troublesome. The train was speeding at high speed, which slightly dissipated the stuffy heat inside the carriage. He stretched out his hand to knock North Carolina, and Washington withdrew his hand. Under the dim light, her right foot tapped the ground one after another. There are still Western cowboys now. Those are a thing of the past and no longer popular. When Nevada and Oklahoma were in the garrison, they dressed like Western cowboys, but that doesn't mean they have to go Western. Cowboy. In the sparsely populated and desolate West, it was difficult to see a small town. There was only one bar in the town. A wanted poster was posted outside the bar, and there was a bounty for each person. There were big wanted criminals and small wanted criminals. From time to time, people rode into the small town, walk into a bar, and then have a fight over a disagreement, with gunfire popping. That's a movie. Who still likes riding horses now? Everyone drives a car. If they haven't seen a wider landscape, they might like Western cowboys, but if they have, let's talk about Gasca. That city is quite prosperous and has everything. Some people like to stay in the park every day, sitting on a bench by the square and watching the white pigeons. Some people like shopping, and there are several buildings in Gasca, as well as underground shopping malls. Some people like to live and die, and there are countless bars in Gasca. The city is so prosperous, why should we go to the desolate west to keep company with the yellow sand and gobe? Sugu didn't understand the preferences of the two sisters at all. He didn't even know the dialogue or the artist's settings. He just knew that the artist seemed to be a setting maniac. Thinking about it again, Sugu vaguely remembered where he had seen it or who he had heard it from, but he couldn't remember it now. Oklahoma's profession, she should be a bounty hunter, killer, or stalker. Washington waved her hand and said, bounty hunters, well, the main thing now is that they can't find wanted criminals, not that they can't defeat wanted criminals. Ship girls can't hunt for enemies on ordinary people. It's not a flat and wide sea, so hunting for enemies is useless. Besides, the current government does not allow ship girls to interfere in the internal affairs of human society, even if they are serving the government. We should leave the matter of wanted criminals to the police. There is no need for bounty hunters in this era. A long time ago, there were probably ship girls who became hunters and killers of the government and the military. Ever since the admiral and ship girls established the ship girl headquarters, and then signed an agreement with the government, prohibiting the use of ship girls as weapons, this kind of the matter has disappeared. This is true, and that is true, Sugu said. Then what are they doing now? Sitting inside the train, listening to the clanging sound, the train gradually entered the train station. The train platform was bustling with people, including police officers, salesmen pushing carts selling various small commodities, soldiers in military uniforms standing upright and silent with suitcases, and various passengers. There is a big yellow dog on a bench, which reminds Sugu of the story of the loyal dog Hachiko. However, the dog is obviously not as cute as in the movie. The whistle sounded and the train pulled into the station. Washington stood up and took down everyone's luggage one by one. When the train stopped, it was already night. Washington looked out the window at the neon lights at night, with red and green lights. Admiral, what do you think they like? Sugu said in frustration, don't make me guess anymore. I don't want to guess anymore. After getting out of the train, at this time, a person walked over from nowhere. He looked at Sugu and his group, a combination of one man and many girls, a big fat sheep. He targeted South Dakota, who seemed to be the most bullied among the group. As they passed each other, he reached out and tried to snatch the bag from South Dakota's hand. However, he pulled and pulled, but couldn't move the bag at all. He raised his head and saw South Dakota's confused expression. It took South Dakota a while to react. She yelled, "It's a robbery." Washington sighed and kicked the man with his foot, knocking him several meters away. This city has the greatest number of thieves, robbers, murderers, and gamblers, Washington said. You are listening to novels at Bless Up Channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai Rong Yan. Chapter 437. Leaving the station, everyone carried their luggage, including suitcases, handbags, and trolley cases. They attracted the attention of many passers-by along the way. After all, this combination seemed too strange. If in Chuangziu, everyone knew the ship girl and could probably guess the identity of such a group of people, but few people knew them here. Although he knew that Nevada and Oklahoma were in the city, Sugu was not in a hurry to find people immediately. It's late at night now, so don't rush. Sitting on the train for a long time, even if you have money in the train, it is difficult to buy delicious food. When you get off the car at this time, of course you have to fill in your 5 internal organs temple. Cross the street and find a beautifully decorated restaurant on the side of the street. Because there were so many people, the group sat at 2 tables. Wave, order, and wait for your meal to be served. Washington sat by the window. She looked at the cars passing by on the street and listened to the beeping of the car horns. This city is always called the city of criminals. Such a name is certainly unfair. The main reason why it gets such a name is that vicious cases frequently occur here. This country is the United States, and each state has its own laws. Murder, arson, and drug trafficking are illegal crimes in every state, and they are also here. But things that are not very bad, such as gambling, are illegal in other states, but they are legal here. In addition, the gun management here it's not that strict. Washington talks eloquently. As a lawyer, she knows the laws of each state very well. In addition to the need to understand the law, many classic cases need to be studied. Lawyers are a profession with a very low ceiling and a very high ceiling. You can starve to death and stretch to death. Washington is considered a rising star in the legal world, but it quickly faded away because of Sugu's appearance. In addition to the lax gun control, poor police management, and tough folk customs, it also has something to do with it. Speeding and drag racing are not a problem here at all in ordinary cities. Gangs are rampant here, and there is a gang on 1 or 2 streets. You give North Carolina, the story told is that there must be a Lich King. That's right, no gang here is bigger, and then all the gangs are managed. Nowadays, the gangs in the whole city are fighting for their territory, and I'm fighting for my territory, and the demons are dancing wildly. By the way, in all the movies you watch about gangsters and The Godfather, the story takes place in the city. Of course, if you just ordinary people, in fact, these things are usually quite far away from you. Don't steal, gamble, or rob, don't go out at night, don't go to bars and karaoke bars, and just don't go to a few streets during the day. When the food was served, Sugu said, in such a chaotic city, the ship girls should have good personalities. Are they police officers now? Washington took a knife and fork, cut a medium-ripe steak, cut a small piece into his mouth, and said, they are gamblers and gangsters. While talking, we slowly finished our dinner. North Carolina is just a little girl now, having fun all the way on the train without rest. She finished her dinner quickly, sat on the seat and shook her legs, then lay down on her stomach, now looking a little drowsy. After dinner, we found a hotel to stay in. There are only a few rooms left, all are booked. Not only had he booked a single room, Sugu still felt that the waiter looked at him strangely. There was no way to have a good rest on the train. After returning to the room, I casually said some words and rested. South Dakota was assigned to different rooms between Sue and Gu. When it was time to go to sleep, she stretched out her hand and knocked on the wall, shouting, "Admiral, Admiral." Suddenly another voice sounded, that was Washington's voice, shouting, "Shut up." Apparently Washington was tired of hearing it and punched the wall hard. Sugu felt that the whole building could probably hear the sound. The next day, Sugu went out with Washington and California. It would be too troublesome if there are many people, and it is often easy to attract onlookers. After all, you are not going to play but to find people. There is no need for so many people to follow you. Akagi is always indifferent to such things. If you ask her to go, it doesn't matter if you don't. Richelieu wanted to go, but after thinking about it, he decided to forget it. There was no need to follow him so hard. Washington was definitely a reliable person. South Dakota, on the other hand, was a little angry. She was a little unhappy that Washington could go out but she couldn't. She always had to argue with Washington. Sugu and others first went to the places where Nevada and Oklahoma lived before, but there was no one there. A big lock hung on the door. It was covered with rust. It looked like it had not been occupied for a long time. The next place we went to was the casino. Washington told interesting stories on the way. Casinos are a legal industry here, but even casinos still need to pay taxes. The tax police in the city are the most vicious existence. They collect taxes from all industries, and the government is like the largest underworld. Because of this, there are many people here illegal underground casinos, and from time to time you can see shootouts between tax police and gangsters. California said, "I think of Nevada. She was terrible and liked to cheat. She was taught a lesson in the past." Sugu asked doubtfully, "I was taught a lesson, by whom? Who can teach the ship girl a lesson?" California glanced at the side and said with a smile, "Who can teach her a lesson? The one next to you." Washington smiled beside him, without any embarrassment at all, and full of pride, which made people worry. While chatting, several people searched for several casinos that they frequently visited in Nevada. After asking for a long time, they found nothing. When it was noon, I finally got some news at a casino. Nevada hasn't been to a casino for a long time, and she's now looking after the tables at a bar. Sugu found the bar where they were. The bar was not very big, and there were many people around the corner. It looked like a gathering of people gambling. Several people approached. In fact, someone had seen them before, but they didn't care. Roll the dice. Flying cards. Toss a coin. If you lose, give me money. There were only 2 women among those, obviously Nevada and Oklahoma. Sugu and others stood nearby for a few minutes, but Nevada and Oklahoma didn't react at all, obviously not noticing. Then Nevada lost, and she angrily threw the money in front of her and complained, and the people around her started talking. "You will win if you wait, and you will win the next one." Sugu watched, and he whispered beside him and said with a smile, "As long as your thoughts don't slip, there are always more solutions than difficulties. Give it a try, and the bicycle will become a motorcycle, take a gamble, and the motorcycle will become a jeep. Make a small bet to support your family, and make a big bet to make a fortune. Which kid cries every day, and which gambler loses every day? Only those who love to fight will win, and those who dare to gamble will become famous. If you want to be rich, bet big. If you are not afraid of the pain of losing, you are afraid of ending your gambling." Nevada was staring at the cards in his hand when he heard a voice chattering next to him, which was annoying. Although the voice sounded familiar, I couldn't remember who it was. She was holding the cards with an ugly expression on her face. It was obvious that the cards were not ideal, and she was reluctant to even turn around when she heard the sound. "Don't bother me anymore, don't chirp. Otherwise I'll beat you up." Washington listened and thought, "Your performance is too bad." So she patted Nevada on the shoulder. Nevada was troubled and annoyed with the palm that slapped on her shoulder. Although she hangs out in the bar, she is not as unruly as ordinary bar girls. "Let go, try again, I'll chop off your hand," Jian said in a stern voice. Nevada still didn't want to look back, and Washington twitched his lips. She stretched out her hand, and dots of light appeared in her hand. Suddenly an axe appeared in her hand, and then she held the axe and slammed it on the gaming table. The axe hit the gambling table, scaring everyone. Nevada stood up and said, "Who is so blind? How dare you throw the axe at me? I have never been afraid of anyone before." Nevada wanted to have a seizure. Sitting next to Oklahoma, who was not involved in the gambling, she noticed the white axe that struck the wooden gaming table. She felt a little familiar, and then she looked up and saw the gloomy face of Washington, the American gangster. She thought to herself that if she offended this god, it seemed that her sister would go ashore if not. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 438. There were no lights on in the bar during the day, but the light was pretty good. This place doesn't deliberately create a dark atmosphere and then light up colorful lights like many bars. The bar is not big, with many potted plants on the walls and no dance floor or stage. No matter where you stand, you can have a clear view of the entire bar. This bar is just a place for drinking. There was a small round table with a glass surface and a semicircular sofa, with only a few people sitting there and whispering. On the long bar and tall wine cabinet, all kinds of wine are neatly arranged. The bartender, who was wearing a white shirt and a black vest, had just returned to the bar from the gambling table. He was looking at the corner of the bar and cleaning the bottom of the cup with a white cloth. In the corner, Nevada sat in front of Washington. Although she had always had an unruly personality, she was not as powerful now. There is no enterprise in the garrison. Among all the American battleships, Lexington has a gentle personality, Saratoga is childish, and Essex is a junior and has no mouth. The great America is full of talented people. It is time for Washington to step up and become the gang boss of the great America. Seeing Nevada being honest, the waiters who had originally come over because of Washington and were dismissed were talking around. Although his boss is only a woman, he has never been afraid of anyone in the whole street. Even those, to be a little exaggerated, even those big men who are 8 feet tall and 8 feet in waist are no match for their boss. Such a powerful man was acting like a trembling quail in front of another woman. It was said that she was too quail, like the kind of rebellious girl who was caught by her parents. She acted nonchalantly, and anyone with a discerning eye could see that she was honest. Washington knocked on the table and said, "Nevada, would you like to have some image? I've become very image conscious. I can't gamble anymore." "Do not." On the other side, Sugu, California, and Oklahoma are together. Sugu looked at Oklahoma, who had long hair hanging over his shoulders, and said, "Remember when you used to wear braids?" Oklahoma said, "Because wearing braids is a bit too old-fashioned. It's not like in the game, where changing clothes requires Krypton gold. Especially the Krypton gold doesn't matter, the main thing is that you haven't changed your clothes yet, which makes people feel helpless and you can't buy it even if you want to. In reality, every ship girl can have whatever hairstyle she wants, and wear whatever clothes she wants." Oklahoma didn't wear braids like before, her long blonde hair was down and slightly curly. Also, compared to the game, she doesn't dress like an exhibitionist. Sugu said, "To be honest, I think it looks better now." Oklahoma brushed her long hair and said, "Really? With your actions, I noticed that the people watching you were confused. You should be quite fierce normally." Oklahoma laughed and said, "Maybe it was a misunderstanding because I put the gun to his head several times." "No wonder then." Sugu pursed his lips and asked in confusion, "Washington is a lawyer now, why did you become a gangster?" The gangster looked very handsome. Sugu remembered that when he was a child, he had watched those movies about Young and Dangerous and admired him. "I was a primary school student at that time. After I understood a little bit about things, I didn't feel that becoming a young and dangerous kid was something to be proud of. Gangsters, young and dangerous, are ultimately the scum and scum of society. Even if he puts on the cloak of loyalty, he is still a bad person in the final analysis. Occasionally doing something loyal and passionate cannot cover up the many bad things they have done. Sugu still trusted his ship girls. At this time, he was more curious than asking why they became gangsters. Oklahoma explained softly, and Sugu suddenly understood what was going on. Although they are called gangsters, they will not do anything extremely heinous, nor will they commit murder, arson, or kidnapping and selling drugs. After all, she is a ship girl, and as a girl born from beautiful memories, it is harmless to do some pranks and not be considered a bad thing, but truly evil deeds are not. Although they charge protection fees, they won't smash or rob you just because you don't pay them. And after collecting protection fees, they are really doing protection. To a certain extent, they can be said to be like security guards, but their name is a gangster. After saying these things, Oklahoma said, "Washington and California are here, what else? Some sister ships are not together, like Northampton and Prince Eugene, but most of the sister ships are still together. I saw California, but I didn't see Tennessee. I saw Washington, but I didn't see North Carolina, especially South Dakota. The two of them were also inseparable and happy enemies." Sugu said, "They are not here, there are too many people, but we are here." After talking about his own affairs, Sugu thought about it and felt that he should be more direct. Sugu said, "How are you doing here?" "It's good. Actually, we are going back to the town hall. I heard from Washington that you are here. Come here quickly." "Think about it, I have already left the town hall this time, which is much longer than what I agreed with Lexington." Sugu said, "Nevada and Washington are back." Nevada sat opposite Sugu, with one hand on the back of the sofa, legs crossed, and she said, "Oh, I'm actually back." Washington said, "Be respectful to the Admiral." Nevada said, "He must have abandoned us in the first place." Every ship girl has her own personality, and Nevada and Oklahoma are no exception. Sugu didn't understand the dialogue between the sisters in the game, so there was no way to guess their characters. Now that I see Nevada's appearance and listen to that tone, I think they probably have a straightforward character. Sugu said, "I'm sorry, but there is a reason." "I don't care so much." Nevada raised her hand. She looked at Sugu and said, "Can you come over and ask us to go back?" Sugu nodded. Nevada crossed his arms and said, "Go where you want, we won't go back. You can come when you want and leave when you want. It's really amazing. You have something to do, please tell me. What kind of words do you leave without saying a word? Now that you are back, you want us to call you back to the town hall. Why? Although we are not very powerful ship girls, at least we have some dignity. Well. Besides, as an admiral, you have never cared about us." If this situation had happened in the past, Sugu would probably have said, "Since you don't want to come back, then don't come back." After experiencing so many things, Sugu would never be able to say such a thing now. He recalled that when he was a child, he didn't remember being beaten because he made a mistake or being disobedient. He heard his father yell, "Get out of here, as far away as possible." At that time, I had a stubborn temper, and I would never accept a soft but not a tough one. When I heard these words, I slammed the door and left. As soon as I went out, I was immediately pulled back by my mother who was chasing me. I was reluctant because I had a bad temper at that time anyway. When I was a child, I felt like running away from home, so I ran away from home. Now that I know a little bit about things, I will never do that kind of thing again. Because I know that even though my parents say that, they don't mean it that way. Of course, in fact, my parents never said anything like that again. Sugu looked at Nevada and said, "I have no choice. I will never leave casually again, so." Nevada raised an eyebrow and said, "Is this the end? Don't be too fussy, Washington said. "Don't worry." Then Nevada saw Washington's expression, a little scared, and whispered, "Don't worry about it." With that said, Nevada pulled out his revolver. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 439. Nevada took out a revolver from his waist, with a silver-white metal body and a black walnut-colored wooden grip. Sugu himself had a pistol, which was a weapon given to him by Bismarck in the past. He still likes and pays close attention to the birth of weapons. In fact, there are already magazine-type fully automatic pistols. Nevada still uses revolvers, probably because they like them. Nevada took out the revolver, shook his hand, and popped out the magazine. He lowered his arms and pushed out the bullets one by one. The bullets clattered to the ground. She waved her hand again and the magazine closed. The drum-type magazine was moved with fingers, making a clicking sound. Finally, she slapped the revolver on the table and looked at Sugu provocatively. "Shoot yourself in the head and we'll follow you back." I was so happy talking to Oklahoma. If you don't leave, Oklahoma will definitely leave with me." Of course, Sugu would not dare to say this. He looked at Nevada's provocative smile, and then at the revolver on the table. This can be regarded as Russian roulette. Just shoot yourself in the temple to show your determination and trust. Revolvers usually have 6 bullets, but I didn't notice how many bullets Nevada had just introduced. Generally speaking, there is only about 1 bullet in the magazine now, which is considered a 1/6 chance of being shot. But is my ship girl really that cruel? Maybe all the bullets will be pushed out. Maybe there are still bullets in the magazine, and they will stop themselves when they reach out. Maybe nothing is done, it depends on luck. What's the point of doing this? If you are just angry, you still want to scare yourself. If you leave in the future, you will really be waiting with a revolver. Sugu was still thinking before he slowly raised his hand. Washington saw the revolver being slapped on the table by Nevada. She didn't care whether you were angry or not. She directly raised her hand and pushed Nevada down on the table, then picked up the revolver and pointed it at Nevada's head. Click, 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 and she pulled the trigger many times in succession. Washington said, "Nevada, you are really amazing, who do you think you are?" Nevada was pinned down on the table, feeling extremely embarrassed. However, Washington was merciless and powerful, and she couldn't resist at all. Nevada raised his hand and slapped the table, saying, "Washington, Washington, there are no bullets in the pistol at all. Even if there are no bullets, I don't want the Admiral to do such a dangerous thing." After that, Washington finally let Nevada go. Sugu watched Nevada taking pictures of clothes and sorting out her image. Originally, I thought Nevada was unruly, independent, and had a very ferocious expression. But when Washington pinned him down on the table and immediately begged for mercy, now it seems a bit funny. On the contrary, Washington gave people the impression that he did not follow the plot at all. Does this mean you are fierce and I am more fierce? She was startled at first, but now Nevada's mind is clear. Sugu no longer had any worries. Nevada originally had his legs crossed, but now he was sitting upright. Nevada looked at Sugu, her expression became ferocious again. Looking at the familiar eyebrows, she picked up her revolver from the table. This time she picked up a bullet from the ground and stuffed the bullet into the magazine in front of Sugu's eyes. She looked at her sister Oklahoma, who avoided her gaze. She looked toward California, who looked at the ceiling. There are several wine glasses on the table, which are the beers brought by the bartender when everyone comes in. Nevada picked up a wine glass and placed it on top of his head. "Put this wine glass on yours like this." Before Nevada could finish speaking, Washington took his axe and swung it towards the wine glass on Nevada's head. The axe hit Nevada's head and hit the wine glass. The wine glass exploded directly on Nevada's head. Fortunately, there was no beer in the wine glass. When the waiter in the distance saw such a scene, he swung his axe without hesitation. No wonder it was a woman who could suppress his boss. This was a bit too fierce. To be honest, Nevada herself was frightened. She reached out and touched her slightly soaked hair, still feeling frightened. Nevada looked at Washington's smile. She quickly put down the revolver, raised her hand and placed it on the table, spreading her fingers. Then she reached into her pocket and took out a butterfly knife. Washington immediately hit the table with his own axe, and the sharp axe blade hit Nevada directly between his ring finger and middle finger, without missing a beat. Washington sat next to Sugu, leaned on the sofa, and said, "You continue, I will take care of everything for the Admiral." Nevada said, "I told you to leave it alone." "I don't care, show me your ship uniform, and you can fire at me." Sugu listened and thought to himself, what on earth is this? Nevada ignored Washington. She looked at Sugu and said, "Do you want to drink?" Sugu said, "I generally don't drink, but it doesn't matter if I drink a little." He drank a lot of red wine with the Prince of Wales, but the alcohol content was often not high. Ever drunk? Drunk. I remember that in the past, I took my classmates to my home to play. At that time, in order to accompany my classmates, I drank 2 glasses of home-brewed sweet potato wine in one go, but within a few minutes I felt dizzy. The first time I got drunk and the first time I vomited was probably around that time. It's particularly uncomfortable to feel like your head is awake but not awake yet. After that, I would occasionally drink outside, but I would never get drunk. Nevada shouted toward the bar, "Joseph, a glass of the Eye of the Storm. The strongest drink in our bar, 1 drink at least. Washington, you can't control this." Soon, a glass of strange-colored wine was placed in front of Sugu. Nevada said, "Then after drinking this glass of wine, let's go back with you." The revolver is still a little hesitant. As for the wine, there is no need to worry at all, as long as it is not Laumaz's aviation kerosene. Just a glass of wine, just a strong drink. Before Washington reached out, Sugu picked up the wine glass. It is said to be the strongest wine. There is not a strong smell of alcohol, so the alcohol content is probably not high. Regardless of what Nevada thinks, just drink it. He didn't like drinking, so he just thought it would be nice to drink it all in one breath. Sugu picked up the wine glass and drank it all in one gulp. He turned the glass over and said, "I've finished drinking." "It's okay." Nevada hesitated and said, "It's no problem, but, Admiral, you drank too fast." It was the first time she called out the word Admiral. California said, "The strongest wine, please put some water in it." There is no water, although the alcohol content is not very high. This is fragmented wine. We call it the eye of the storm, just like the eye of a tornado without wind, but do you dare to say it is safe there? If you go wrong in the slightest, you will be swept into the air immediately. This wine is just like that. It doesn't smell like much, the alcohol content isn't that great, but it's easy to get drunk, and it's a big glass. So, Nevada vowed, but Sugu felt that everything was fine. He said, "It's fine, it's fine." After saying that, he supported the wine table, then shook his head, and then shook his head again. Then he squinted his eyes, but he didn't fall down or speak. He felt a little dazed. "It's okay, I'm not drunk, I'll sit down for a while." Washington supported Sugu and said, "Nevada." Nevada's expression changed, and he waved his hand quickly, saying, "It's wine, let's get drunk at most." I wanted to watch him take a sip and stop him immediately, but he actually finished it in one sip. And, Washington, look, now the Admiral is drunk, you can do whatever you want. Even if I want to do something, it doesn't need to be like this. It's best for you to go to South Dakota for this kind of thing. I don't like it. Washington saw Sugu leaning on the sofa and squinting his eyes. He was just drunk, but he was really not worried. Washington said, "What's your point in doing such a thing?" "It doesn't make any sense," Nevada said. Nevada looked at Sugu and shouted, "Admiral, Admiral." Got no response. California said, "You're so drunk. You actually let the Admiral drink wine." "I run a gang, I'm a bad guy, I'm a pest." With that said, Nevada sat next to Sugu. She lifted up Sugu's clothes and said, "Tisk, tisk, tisk, I can't tell that the Admiral has chest muscles, but his abdominal muscles are not as obvious as California's." California's expression was cold and he said, "Try saying it again." "Although she has abdominal muscles, they are not obvious." Seeing that Sugu could no longer be drunk, California held his face with one hand and suddenly said, "Nevada, if Washington didn't take action just now. You know whether there are bullets in the gun, but the Admiral doesn't know. This kind of thing is very dangerous. If the Admiral is unwilling to take the gun, what should you do? Or if you just asked him to drink wine, the Admiral will probably drink it. But what does this mean? It is a threat. If the Admiral walks away and says, 'Do you want to go back, Hui?' what should you do at that time? Have you considered doing such a thing?" "I don't know, I haven't thought about it," Nevada said. Washington was silent for a moment and said, "As long as I am here, nothing like that will happen." Nevada took out the pistol and I would teach her a lesson immediately. If the Admiral hadn't picked up the glass of wine immediately and drank it, I would have picked it up directly. "Drink it? I don't want to give the Admiral a choice, I won't give the Admiral a choice." Washington looked at Nevada, and she said, "Fortunately, I'm here this time. What if it's Richelieu? What if it's the Prince of Wales? What if it's prestige here? What if it's a lion? They don't care if you come back to guard mansion. Besides, what if the Admiral's temper is a little bit worse? I am a lawyer. Over the years, I have met many people and heard many things. Many times, conflicts between people often arise over trivial matters. In order to test whether my boyfriend loves me, I pretend to when she was sick, her boyfriend, who was busy at work, rushed home immediately and saw his girlfriend in full swing. He didn't say anything at the time, because the conflicts and grudges were already there. As a ship girl, we can easily tell lies. When you are worried about whether your Admiral is lying, taking the first step is not just asking for trouble. It is the first step to step into the deep-sea ship girl. I don't know if you are being brainless, punishing, or you want to test your own importance and test the trust the Admiral has given you. If the Admiral is unwilling to pick up the gun, what kind of Russian roulette are you playing? He doesn't trust you, he doesn't pay attention to you. Are you going to leave? Aren't you going back to the garrison? We are ship girls, and he is the Admiral. Although I believe the Admiral likes us and trusts us. But people's hearts are unpredictable, and some things are best tried. Don't try." Washington spoke harshly. Nevada thought for a moment and said, "I was wrong." Then Nevada suddenly stood up, saluted Washington, and said, "Boss, big sister, please continue to teach us in the future. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 440. Washington carried Sugu back to the hotel. In addition to California, Nevada, and Oklahoma were also back together. When we returned to the hotel, Akage was the only one inside. After all, without Sugu accompanying her, she would rather sit quietly somewhere than go shopping. At this moment, she looked at Sugu who was put on the bed, her heart suddenly tightened, and then she calmed down, and she smelled the smell of alcohol. "Admiral, What's wrong? Washington placed Sugu on the bed and put a pillow under her head. She was actually quite good at taking care of people. Drunk. Washington did not tell what happened. It was not a big deal, he was just drunk. If the admiral wants to speak at that time, let the admiral do the talking. Anyway, she personally believes that there is no need to talk about these things that affect harmony and everyone's relationship but have no unnecessary meaning. Akage looked at Nevada, who was following behind, looking a little guilty. She can actually understand a lot of things, but she often doesn't like to talk things out. She always thinks that more things are worse than less things. Probably Nevada's bartender, but just drunk. Although she has never been interested in American ship girls, she didn't want to say anything at this time. Leave it to me to take care of it. Kagami is often drunk, but I'm pretty good at it. Washington was lucky that the person here was Akage, otherwise Richelieu would have got to the bottom of it. Nevada whispered, "Who is that?" Akage. "Does she look like this?" "I remember it's not like this. She's grown." Richelieu and the others went shopping. They went out in the morning and returned to the hotel in the afternoon, just buying some things. Back at the hotel, Richelieu saw Nevada and Oklahoma. She said hello, and then she saw Sugu lying on the bed. Sugu didn't drink much to begin with, and it didn't spill on his clothes either. There was only a faint smell of alcohol in the air. Akage said, "It's okay, I'm drunk." Since Akage said so as a wedding ship, Richelieu couldn't say anything. She frowned and said, "Be careful when drinking." Guam was sitting next to her, and she said, "The admiral told me before that I should be careful in the bar. Don't drink too much and someone will pick up your body." Does this count as someone picking up your body? South Dakota is still old and innocent, she has not been poisoned by Sugu, and said, "What does picking up corpses mean?" Guam chuckled and said, "Of course you have to do indescribable things to pick up corpses." South Dakota poked Sugu's cheek and said, "What should we do?" Both of them were immediately knocked on the head by Washington. Sugu woke up in the middle of the night. After getting up, he groped around in the dark for water and heard a voice in the darkness. "Admiral, here you go." Under the hazy moonlight, Akage gave people a ghostly feeling. Sugu didn't care and drank 2 glasses of water. Akage said, "Do you still have a headache?" "It's okay, well, are you awake the entire time?" "Yes." Nevada came over to apologize the next day, but Sugu felt that he had nothing to apologize for. He had always had a good temper. Nevada said, "You can't give us small shoes when we return to the town hall from now on." Sugu was not so stingy, he said, "No, no." Nevada was wearing a cowboy hat, and Sugu suddenly felt a little familiar. "Admiral, your smile is weird." "Nothing, I just saw you both wearing cowboy hats. You look like a wanted criminal, Oklahoma looks like a bounty hunter." "It's not just that." When Sugu saw Nevada, he actually remembered Django, Hell's Most Wanted. However, it is an indecent book, not a pure love type, and it must not be said casually. Sugu smiled, and Nevada became more and more curious. She stretched out her hand to tighten Sugu's neck. Seeing Richelieu beside her, she didn't dare to move much with her hands. Since finding Nevada and Oklahoma, it's a pity that there are no familiar ship girls. They continued on to St. Sloven, where they had to take a cruise back. I saw a huge cruise ship at the port of St. Sloven, but I still had to wait for many days. I could only buy the ticket in advance and wait. There is one thing that makes people slightly unhappy. Without Leipzig to help assist, it would be a pity that there are not enough cabins for many people to live in. In the past few days while waiting for the cruise ship to sail in St. Sloven, Sugu saw the appearance of the royal sister of North Carolina for the first time. It seemed that because Nevada and Guam had been teasing lowly North Carolina, they pushed a little harder, making the little lowly feel very shy. Little Loli didn't want to face it, so Sister Yu appeared. Royal Sister North Carolina has long silver hair with bright red tips. With a delicate appearance but a hint of wildness, and a tall figure, she is exactly like a grown-up version of Lolita North Carolina. Sugu said, "Teach them 2 more troublemakers." Royal Sister North Carolina looked at Sugu with meaningful eyes and said, "I know everything you did to me." Sugu blushed a little, his shyness was suppressed by curiosity, and he said, "You 2 personalities have the same memory." "There are no 2 personalities, just different personalities." Sugu muttered, "If they have different personalities, then they are 2 personalities." While waiting for the cruise ship to sail, Nevada and Oklahoma like to look at passers-by boredly and guess what occupation they are, whether they are farmers, sailors, workers, civil servants, or big bosses. Sugu was listening and said, "He has a big head and a thick neck. He is either a rich man or a cook. He should be a chef." "What about that one?" "Be a student." Nevada asked, "Why?" Sugu said, "Because he is wearing a student uniform." Oklahoma laughed from the side. After staying in St. Sloven for several days, Sugu was walking on the dock that day when someone suddenly tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around and saw that it was Chinkai's shipgirl Kirishima. Kirishima said, "We missed the original cruise and had to wait for the next one. It's a coincidence that we can still see you. How about it, have you found anyone?" South Dakota was originally stuck by Sugu's side, and Washington was arguing with her next to her. They met an acquaintance of the admiral. The 2 of them turned back curiously, and they saw Kirishima. At the same time, Kirishima had a bad feeling when he saw the 2 of them, but he didn't notice anything wrong. She actually knew Sugu's purpose of coming here, and she came here specifically to find someone. Judging from the appearance of the 2 people, they must be the ship girl because they are so beautiful. Then something happened to her suddenly. Everyone was an admiral and a ship girl, and Sugu had nothing to hide. He introduced Kirishima, "This is South Dakota, this is Washington." Hearing these 2 names, the smile on Kirishima's face stopped abruptly. He laughed twice and said, "Hello, hello. Well, my admiral is still over there. I have something to do, so I'll leave first." Kirishima ran away like flying. She first walked quickly, and then changed from walking to running. Washington looked at Kirishima's back with some confusion. Washington asked in confusion, "Who is that?" At this time, Sugu also figured it out. He laughed and said, "That's the Kirishima. It probably feels uncomfortable to see you 2, ha ha ha." Sugu's smile was particularly happy. "I heard from Kirishima that you really found 2 ship girls, Washington and South Dakota." Standing next to Sugu was Chinkai. Apparently Kirishima had gone back and told everything. Sugu said, "Of course, I lied to you, those are Washington and South Dakota. 2 battleships, you are a real beast." Although it was a curse word, Sugu laughed, and then he said, "Speaking of which, why did you miss the original cruise ship?" "It's unlucky. It took me a long time to finish my work, and then I went to the wildlife sanctuary for a while. I saw bison and cougars. I calculated the time well, and there was still plenty. Then on the way back, the car broke down. It's not like I can't repair cars, and that's it. It's quite unlucky. Anyway, I came here by train. Trains are also prone to breakdown. Anyway, if you are unlucky, your teeth will be choked even if you drink cold water." Standing at the pier, enjoying the sea breeze and talking casually, Chinkai suddenly said, "Carrier-based aircraft, look over there, there is a ship girl there." The ship girl wearing a purple pencil skirt stood on the shore. Judging from the ship's uniform, it was the Fengxiang light aircraft carrier. That ship girl was obviously not a wandering ship girl. There was a little girl with an oriental face beside her. The little girl is obviously an admiral. She is not wearing regular clothes like Sugu and Shinkai. She is wearing a white admiral uniform, which is obvious at a glance. What to do? Cold salad. Sugu and Shinkai, you pushed me, I pushed you, the two of them decided to communicate or show off as seniors. What are you doing? Don't look at us like this, we are also admirals. The young admiral replied, practice how to fry fish. Shinkai watched several carrier-based aircraft flying on the sea, practicing anti-submarine warfare. Anti-submarine warfare is commonly known as fish bombing. As a light aircraft carrier, anti-submarine warfare is something that must be learned. However, we still need to learn anti-submarine warfare. I guess she is a ship girl with little training. The little girl is probably not an admiral, she is still a newbie, which is great. Shinkai pinched his chin and said, the speed of a submarine is usually more than 10 knots. Usually, the destroyer is asked to slow down and act as a submarine, and then the light aircraft carrier controls the carrier-based aircraft to drop depth bombs. In fact, there is no need to practice at all, frying fish it's a very simple thing. Sugu stood nearby and saw the little girl's strange appearance. He felt something was wrong. Shinkai was going to be in trouble. The young admiral said, actually, in addition to letting Feng Xiang practice fish bombing, I also want the submarine to practice how to avoid depth charges. Shinkai was stunned and said, submarine, what kind of submarine? For most admirals, they have never seen a submarine, and Shinkai is obviously one of them. The little admiral said, I have two ship girls, one is the Feng Xiang, and the other is the submarine Tangerine. Submarines are too limited in terms of combat effectiveness, and any destroyer can cause damage. Whether it is a ship girl or a deep-sea ship girl, destroyers are the most numerous. But submarines are not only rare, especially they are young girls. Young girls who are rare and rare, no matter who they are welcome. Later, the submarine girl climbed up from the sea. The surgeonfish had golden shoulder-length hair, like a small Colorado. Although Sugu has many submarines of his own, this is a young submarine girl that he has never seen before, and he really wants it. Submarine. Submarine. Is it strange? I just caught it casually. Damn that little girl, with a confused expression on her face, don't you know how deadly these words are? It must be intentional. After boarding the cruise ship a few days later, Sugu saw the little admiral again. This time I learned the other party's name, it was Shumeng. Sugu waited for the admiral, the little devil-like girl, to ask him how many ship girls he had, but the little girl didn't ask. Life on the cruise ship was a bit boring, and Guam once again pestered Sugu to sing. Sugu squinted his eyes slightly and sang it. Although he couldn't sing it completely, it didn't prevent Sugu from remembering a few of the most classic lines. Come on, be happy, you have a lot of time anyway. The more I panic, the more I think about it, the more I panic, the more it itches, the more I scratch it. After singing 2 lines like this, and matching his expression, Guam patted Sugu on the shoulder and said, you're teasing me, you pervert. Sugu saw Guam's face turned red and didn't dare to sing anymore. He thought it would be better to wait until he got back and sing to his sister-in-law Saratoga. Thinking of my sister-in-law, it's a little difficult to deal with. I and Akagi are making progress so fast. I don't know what will happen to my sister-in-law when I go back. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Xiaozai for a long time. I miss him so much. I wonder if the child is thinking about me. While Sugu was thinking, Guam asked, Admiral, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Keep singing. It definitely couldn't be sung, so Sugu thought about it and changed it to a different song. He remembered which novel he had read the song in. It was a rebirth urban novel that he liked very much. Later, I listened to the song specifically and felt good about it, so I memorized it. Showing off in front of beautiful girls is of course something a man likes to do. Sugu sang, "The lake is your eyes, your dreams are full of stars, your mood is a legend, waiting forever. You can sing pretty well." Sugu turned around and saw Akage, who said, "I used to think that if the admiral was not an admiral, he would definitely not be able to find a girlfriend. But now it seems that as long as the admiral can let go, he is still very powerful." Guam said from the side, Hey, Akage, do you think I've been conquered? No, 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 now I only have a good impression of 51 points on the admiral at most, which is far from enough." Akage squinted his eyes and thought, "You may not be good enough, but you are definitely not 51 good. Speaking of which, South Dakota, North Carolina, Washington, and Richelieu are all enough, poor Admiral." Akage said, "Admiral, remember that Richelieu invited you to dance with her. Remember? Richelieu's offensive was really powerful. Sugu missed the former knight like Richelieu. She was really sultry." Akage continued, "What are you doing now, what should you do, and various itinerary plans. These things are all arranged by Washington now. You have been controlled by her, dominating Washington." Akage smiled and said, "South Dakota bought a pair of silk pajamas. They are really beautiful. Admiral, be careful." Akage's smile became brighter and brighter, and she said, "Admiral, can you really discover North Carolina? When does she have a lowly body and a Lolita heart, and when does she have a Lolita body and a royal sister's heart?" Sugu's expression changed drastically. Akage was no longer ready to tease Sugu anymore, so she said, "How long will it take to return to the governor's mansion?" "I don't know, most of the month." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 441. Sugu left the Toot Larry mansion. He was the core and heart of the entire Toot Larry mansion. A little more narcissistic, it can be said that the entire town government revolves around him. Although it has become a bit like a dispensable mascot character, his importance cannot be denied. I went out at the end of July in order to find my companions who once belonged to the garrison. It's not the kind of separation between life and death. The daily life in the guardhouse remains the same, just do whatever you want. However, compared with when Sugu was in the town hall, the daily life in the town hall was slightly different now. For example, Saratoga, who usually runs around and likes to dress herself up, has become a little raunchy recently. A woman likes her appearance, and her brother-in-law is not around, which makes her feel a little boring, and she is too lazy to dress up carefully. Now she always plays with Baizai. The two sisters-in-law who like to make trouble are always worried when they are together. Sugu left, and Baizai still had the same lifestyle. Only occasionally did she feel a little disappointed when she opened the door of Sugu's room and saw no one or several destroyers sitting inside. No one gave him a pillow on his knees, no one accompanied him to talk about his sister, and no one accompanied him to bully Xiaozai. Lexington is the secretary-ship of the town government. She is very intimidating to elementary school students like Destroyer. She is a gentle but serious big sister without losing her majesty. The Prince of Wales and Bismarck had never been at odds, and once they quarreled. Without Sugu, Lexington couldn't actually control the situation. Just like a long time ago, such a conflict occurred and Sugu was not around, causing the garrison to fall apart. Of course, there were more people in the governor's mansion at that time, and the disappearance of the admiral made everyone impatient and not in a good mood. You want to spend all your resources to find the admiral, she wants to save resources and take her time. Radicals and moderates, water and fire, once they quarrel, it's like lighting a dynamite pack. Sugu is here, no matter how we quarrel, there is a bottom line. Nowadays, there are very few quarrels between Bismarck and the Prince of Wales. Firstly, everyone is restraining themselves. Secondly, there is another matter. Bismarck and the Prince of Wales were originally equally matched rivals. This balance was broken when Bismarck's eternal secretary and nanny, Prince Eugen, accidentally or intentionally revealed. Although that kind of thing has been known for a long time, after all, there are no real secrets in a garrison. Only after actually hearing what happened, Sugu frequently went in and out of Bismarck's room. As a wedding ship, the Prince of Wales still felt that she was being squeezed. Now she didn't want to quarrel with Bismarck. The majestic Bismarck battleship is like a cat, flattering in front of a man. The Prince of Wales showed disdain. Only in the dead of night, with the doors and windows of the room closed, would she stand in front of the floor-length mirror in her underwear. The fingers slide from the long hair to the eyebrows, then across the bridge of the nose to the lips, from the collarbone to the chest to the flat belly and well-proportioned thighs. Then I frowned and thought, why is this? Is it because my figure is not plump enough? It can be noticed that the Admiral always likes to look at his chest, probably because he likes it. Could it be that he usually behaves too fiercely? Maybe he should be a little more proactive, like Richelieu. Richelieu, this time it was an eye-opener for everyone. Originally, when she returned to the town hall, she was always silent. Most of all, I like to paint oil paintings in the governor's mansion. Occasionally, I will be invited by the Queen to be a clothing model. Although everyone is in good health, only Richelieu can walk the catwalk and do various movements that only models can do. I usually don't like to talk much, and I am serious and rigid. However, after learning that the Admiral took Akagi out to see if he could make people grow, before anyone could react, I spent half a day in the library trying to piece together some plausible information. Hey, you are a battleship operating in the Atlantic. What does it have to do with the Pacific? In addition to the Prince of Wales, Saratoga also liked to complain about Richelieu in front of her sister. Even though it's been a long time, I still look away when I should, and I'm still unhappy when I'm unhappy. On this day, Lexington was in the office, dealing with various things. Expenditures and income of the town government. How to arrange the upcoming expedition plan. York City's ability to operate carrier-based aircraft has made great progress, but in order to practice more difficult tasks, she frequently lost carrier-based aircraft and consumed a lot of aluminum. I can't let her continue like this. How can I remind her tactfully? Bizai practiced immortality last night and is now catching up on her sleep. Her brother-in-law is not around, so of course Saratoga has to stick to her sister's side. Her long blonde hair was slightly scattered. Saratoga was wearing a white dress and hugging a pillow. She was lying on the sofa in the office. Why do you think Richelieu is so powerful? No one could have imagined that she thought of it and took action all by herself. Lexington had heard her sister complain many times. She sighed and said, Richelieu is very powerful, so be careful in the future. Gaga, please stop complaining. Who always sticks to the Admiral's side? No way. Every time I saw the Admiral, you were with me twice out of 3 times. 3 times, I found you and your brother-in-law kissing passionately under the magnolia tree behind the dormitory building. I found it 5 times. You hugged each other. Inside the stairs, in front of the warehouse, and on top of the lighthouse. It makes people worry whether you will do something shameless in broad daylight. Apart from these, I think there are many times where you haven't found out. Many people say that if they find something once, it should be considered 100 times. You are a sneaky cat yourself, and you still mean to talk about Richelieu. I and my brother-in-law had obviously done it so secretly, but they were discovered like this. We should be more secretive next time. Saratoga said, Sister, if you don't speak for your own sister, you only speak for others. I'm being realistic. Saratoga said, I am a wedding man. Although my brother-in-law is a brother-in-law, he is also my husband, but Richelieu is nothing. Besides. She turned her head to look at her sister, and saw Lexington wearing the Admiral hat that belonged to her brother-in-law. She thought to herself that her sister actually likes to be a secretary ship, likes to control her brother-in-law, and likes to be a big wife. Sister, we only did it a few times, and you discovered everything and still remember it clearly. You really want to control your brother-in-law. Lexington blushed slightly, and calmed down after a moment. She said, it's useless for you to complain first. Besides, as a wife, it's nothing for me to take care of a philandering husband. I don't take care of him like an ordinary person wallet, and allowed him to have a harem. He married Helena and Akagya, and I didn't say anything. Where in the world can you find such a sensible wife as me? Saratoga said, it's not like they don't have any threat at all. Why don't you let the admiral marry you in a small house? Being married doesn't mean you have to do anything, it doesn't mean you have to do it, the kind of thing you and your brother-in-law like to do most at night. Getting married means you just want to acknowledge me and let people feel your sincerity as an admiral. But you always say things like Xiao Zai is still a little girl in front of the admiral, Xiao Zai will become Bazai when she grows up, Xiao Zai is like a daughter. No matter how gentle Lexington is, facing such slander makes people unable to remain calm and gentle. She was speaking and writing at the same time, but when she heard her sister's words, the pen tip paused and was tilted due to the force, leaving a large ball of ink on the document. Xiao Zai is a little girl. No matter how cute she is still a little girl. The admiral sleeps with Xiao Zai much more time than he sleeps with me. It doesn't matter whether they are married or not. Besides, it's not that I don't want to marry him, I don't want to get married because I feel the impact will be bad. Lexington continued, is there any threat to Xiao Zai? Do I need to compete with a little girl for favor? Does that make sense? The admiral only likes Xiao Zai as a sister or a daughter, otherwise what would he think of a little girl? What's the difference between him and an animal? Saratoga muttered, brother-in-law always says that if you earn money in 3 years, the death penalty is worth it. My brother-in-law must have some ideas, and you are obviously afraid of it. Lexington took off his hat, brushed his bangs with his hands and tucked them behind his ears. Gaga. Saratoga. Hearing her sister's stern voice, Saratoga was immediately frightened, and she quickly said, okay, sister, I'm joking, don't mind. You are the queen, you are the eldest lady. Saying this, Saratoga quickly changed the subject and said, when did Richelieu return to the garrison? After Richelieu came back, the garrison underwent a major renovation, which cost a lot of money. She remembered the Lexington well as the secretary ship. Moreover, Richelieu came back and brought back a little princess who liked to cling to the admiral. Some people were upset. Lexington said, let this be the case in June. I have always been curious. When we defeated the deep sea Yamato, why was only Richelieu back? Richelieu knew it from such a far-away place, so many people should know the news. Some more talents should come back, right? There are obviously still many people outside the town hall now. Lexington said, the admiral and I have discussed this, and Richelieu should not be the only one to get the news. After thinking about it, there are probably several reasons. Not everyone is engaged in work related to the admiral and the ship girl, if you are doing an ordinary job, it's not surprising that you don't know these rumors. Richelieu was at the forefront of the battle with the deep-sea ship girls. She also said that she happened to be attending a party at that time, and an admiral who happened to pass by told the rumor. If she hadn't happened to be at the party, I don't know when the rumors here will be known. Even so, she almost missed it at the party. The admiral hadn't reached an agreement with the Enterprise some time ago, and he might as well have moved the garrison staff to the ship's headquarters. Otherwise, we would have encountered moral kidnapping in the beginning. Fortunately, the admiral was able to withstand it. Withstand the pressure. Now that the ship girl headquarters is supporting us, the garrison feels much more at ease. Now some people probably think that the defeat of the deep-sea flagship is the credit of the ship girl headquarters, and no one remembers the name of the admiral. There has been a lot of speculation. Who knows exactly why this happened? Saratoga said, besides Richelieu, do you think anyone will come back? Maybe. Saratoga turned over on the couch, raised her hands, and counted on her fingers. I think about how many people there are: Hood, Reputation, Lion, Avant-Garde, Colorado, I can't count. There are still so many people. My brother-in-law has to run out many times. I must ask him to take me out next time.